Hello everyone. Today I am going to discuss about experimental design, which is a very important part of the research. So what are the contents we are going to learn? First of all, what is experimental design? Then characteristics of the experimental design. Then what are the different types of that? Then I will give some references, name of some books for your further study, and you can test yourself by answering few questions which I have given in the last part of the video. So watch carefully. What is experimental design? Data for the statistical studies are obtained by conducting either experiments or surveys. That means if we want to research on something, either we have to research by the help of the experiments or we have to go through the survey method. For example, if we want to know what are the important minerals present in the cucumber, then we have to take a cucumber to the laboratory and we have to do the extracts and do the experiment on that. Now, if we want to research on the anemia in a certain zone, then we have to do the survey method for the previous history if it would have in some family. So this is the difference between the experiments and the survey research design. Now it's a branch of the statistics that deals with the design and the analysis of the experiment. So these two are very important. That is the design and the analysis of the experiment. That means you have to design how you have to do the experiment. You have to opt for the laboratory experiment or you have to go for the survey method. And after doing the experiment, when you will get the data, you have to analyze the data to get the ultimate result. So the types of design includes the repeated measures. That means you can repeat the same experiment twice if you are not satisfied with that particular design. You can change the design also. Regarding the flowchart of the experimental design, first of all comes what is the research question. That means what is the researcher want to do. Means what is the problem the researcher want to solve. So the problem definition. The researcher should know that what is the problem he or she is going to solve. Then comes the experimental design. That means how the research will be done to solve the problem. After that, the data will be gathered and the data will be analyzed, data collection and analysis. Then comes the evaluation. Evaluation part helps to understand that whether the outcome of the total experimental design is related to the problem or not. Next comes the report part. That means the total detail of the research work has to be reported as a project work along with the interpretation and the result. So this is the total experimental design, how it looks like in the flowchart. So research question, then problem definition, this is experimental design, then data collection and analysis, evaluation and the report. Now we have to know what are the characteristics of the experimental design. The researchers looks at the effects of at least one independent variable, experimental or treatment variable, on one or more dependent variable, criteria or outcome variable. Now you have to understand what is the independent variable and the dependent variable. As the name implied, independent variable means which is independent of everything. We can say that it is the cause of the effect. And dependent variable means it is that particular variable which is dependent on the independent variable. That means it is the result. For an easy explanation, we can uh, understand it like in this way, that independent variable is the cause and dependent variable is the result. For example, If a research worker or a researcher want to know that whether a cup of tea enhances the mood of a person. Now here the cup of tea is the independent variable, means that is the cause, and the mood of the individual person is the dependent variable, because it depends, whether it depends on the cup of tea, that means on the independent variable, that is the research problem. Now the researcher manipulates the independent variable, which is not the case in the other research design. So it's a advantage of this experimental design that the researcher can manipulate the independent variable. So if we think about the previous problem, the cup of tea was the independent variable. Now how the cup of tea can be manipulated? Now instead of one cup of tea, two cups of tea can be given. Now the tea can be added with sugar or can be added with milk. The varieties of milk can be used, the varieties of tea can be used to see whether the dependent variable, that means the mood of a person, is uplifted or not, or which particular independent variable, that means which particular cup of tea or which particular type of tea enhances the mood of the person. Aim of the researcher is to see whether the treatment manipulation has made a difference. Definitely, when a person is doing a research on that, so definitely the researcher will observe that whether the cup of tea enhances the mood of the person, or particularly which cup of tea enhances the mood of the person. So in this way it works. So these are the characteristics of the experimental design. Regarding the types of experimental design, there are three types: pre-experimental research design, true experimental research design, and quasi-experimental research design. Regarding the pre-experimental research design, there are three types of. Very important type is one-shot case study. What is that? Single group of subject is measured on a variable following experimental stimulus. So there are three keywords. Number one is single group of subjects. For example, take 60 people, man, 60 male. Now measure a variable. Let's take the weight of the man. Then experimental stimulus, say street foods. So now we have to give the street foods to the person and we have to check what is the variation in the weight. That is the example of one short case study. The next one is one group pretest and post-test design. Adds a pretest for the group but lacks a control group. Now what is the control group? There are two groups in a particular research. One is experimental group, that means on which the experiment has been done, and another one is control group, that means on which the experiment has not been done but they are kept as a reference with whom the research worker will compare after the experiment is over. But in this case, one group pretest post-test design, it adds a pretest for the group. That means that group of 60 people, the weight of that group of 60 people has been taken prior to the experiment. That is the pretest part, and then they were supplied with the street food, and after that they are compared with the control group in case of the third one, that is the static group comparison. It includes the experimental and the control group but no pretest. That means in this case there is an experimental group of 60 people, control group of 60 people. The experimental group of 60 people will be provided with the street food. The control group of 60 people will not be provided with the street food, and when the research is over, these two groups will be compared from the standpoint of the weight, if it is variable or not. Now the true experiment research design. This design is used for the situations in real life when we don't have any particular groups or classes teams for our research. Like if there is a malaria outburst in a particular place, then there is no particular group. That means a part of men population has been affected, a part of child population has been affected, or only the old persons are affected. So it very close to the situations of the real life. So this type of research design is called the true experimental research design. It is similar to the intact group design, and you may have a pretest for the pretest post-test control group design. That means if we are going to apply some drug to some person, and if we want to know the effect of the drug to that particular person, so we have to take the physical parameters before and after applying the drug, and then we can compare it after the post-test, means with the post-test control group design. So this is the true experimental research design. Next is the quasi-experimental research design. It's like the experimental design test causal hypothesis. A quasi design by definition lacks random assignment. That means there is a group. Quasi-experiment design identify a comparison group that is as similar as possible to the treatment group in terms of baseline pre-intervention characteristics. That means here a group has been selected on which the experiment will be done, and there is also a group which is called the comparison group, who are very close to regarding the characteristics to the group under treatment. Like the person have the age from 10 to 15, under the almost have the same characteristic features, and some of these person are under treatment, and some of these are forms the comparison group. So after treatment or after the experiment is over, there will be a comparison. There are different techniques for creating a valid comparison group, such as regression, discontinuity design, and propensity score matching. So these are the techniques by which the quasi-experiment comparison groups are made. So these are the references of some books which you can go through for further study regarding the experimental design. Now is the time to test yourself. You can test yourself by answering these small questions which are already discussed in the total video. So thank you for your patient listening. I think there is no problem regarding the experimental design, and if there is any problem, feel free to comment in the comment box. Don't forget to subscribe my channel to get this type of educational video. So long. Have a nice day.